Guinea-nomics. Hello, human friends. My name is Pepper, and I've got a bone to pick with you. Several, but I'll keep it brief. I won't even go into all the carbon emissions and habitat loss and soil erosion. I think you're going into it. But I won't. What I want to talk about is investment in infrastructure. Because extreme weather happens, but failure to plan for it doesn't have to. I just went 8 days without power in southeast Texas in July, and even with the AC back, I am still very hot. I wasn't around for the freeze of 2021, but Rosie's told me all about the rolling blackouts, the burst pipe, the 3 days without heat, the 2 weeks without water, how the Texas electrical grid teetered on the brink of failure because its components couldn't handle the prolonged freeze, and that the people in charge knew it wouldn't be able to. They just took a gamble that it wouldn't freeze that bad for that long, and didn't do the upgrades needed to ensure it could withstand that type of event. And that makes a sort of sense, I guess. You can't plan for everything, but you sure as heck can plan for hurricanes. We get hurricanes. We get a major one every few years. Hurricane Beryl wasn't some unforeseen event. The Houston derecho in May was super weird, but I think the same logic applies. It was just a bout of super strong wind. Like I said, we get hurricane force wind. Why did the derecho knock out power for 2 days? Why is so much of our electrical infrastructure susceptible to the very things we know are going to happen? I am losing patches of fur because I'm so stressed out about this. And because you have an ovarian cyst. And I've got an ovarian cyst. So I need surgery next week. And do you know what you need so you can have surgery? Electricity. Look, I know I'm not a human person. I'm a guinea pig person, but there are human persons who couldn't get surgery or chemo or dialysis or cardiac care, and not just because a hurricane blew through, but because our electric infrastructure blows even harder. At least you got evacuated out of town. We had to stay here. Because my ovaries are pumping out all kinds of weird hormones, and that is not why I'm angry. That's why I'm less tolerant to heat stress. There wasn't even a cooling center open within 30 minutes driving distance of us for the first few days. That is inexcusable. People died here, human people, and since our reporting systems aren't geared towards tracking heat deaths, they'll be listed as heart attacks, respiratory collapse, strokes, but they are deaths that would not have happened if the power had come back on, or the cooling centers were prioritized, or people could get cell service to find out where the cooling centers were, because the cell towers failed too. They failed hard. But what's really enraging me is that nothing's going to change. There's a political stranglehold on Texas by people who champion the free market, but don't understand it. The core idea of the free market isn't to be free of regulation. It's to be free to make your own decisions while knowing the true cost and true benefit involved in any action, and being responsible to bear all the costs of your decision. Most regulations are about ensuring that costs are being borne by the correct party and not shifted to other people or society at large. Intelligent regulation is extremely pro-market. And when it comes to capitalism, my friends, the core idea of capitalism is investment. Investment creates returns to capital, and investment involves upfront cost. Public investment involves upfront taxes, but those upfront taxes produce later benefits that are greater than their initial costs. That's how capitalism works. I mean, when you think about it, politicians and CEOs that want to cheap out on public investment, they're the anti-capitalist ones, not the people who want society to work. Making society work takes an investment, it's capitalism, my dudes. Investing now for returns later, that's the whole idea. It doesn't stop being capitalism when the investment is public and the returns are public. Okay, look. Do you know how much this mess is costing us? For the folks who apparently don't care about human lives and suffering, do you not care about business losses, food spoilage, hospital costs? I mean, I'm a guinea pig in a literal disaster area. I don't have the numbers, but ask the experts. They are out there, and they keep telling us that investing in better infrastructure is the cheaper long-term solution. But governments, utilities, corporations keep trying to save a buck up front and costing the rest of us $2 down the line. Refusing to invest in infrastructure shifts costs forward, often to the people least able to pay them. How many families lost a fridge full of groceries, or had to pay a hotel bill to get their elderly or sick relative out of the heat, or lost wages, or spent hundreds of dollars in gas for generators, or driving around aimlessly in their cars as their only source of air conditioning? It's an immense amount of money that wouldn't have to be spent if our infrastructure were more robust. And to make our infrastructure more robust, we need to put in the money up front in the form of taxes and higher routine electricity bills. We need to pay that cost ahead of time so we don't get slammed with even more cost and, human death and suffering later on. I'm mad as hell at CenterPoint, but CenterPoint isn't the actual problem. It's a symptom of a government hostile to thoughtful science-based regulation, and implementing those regulations requires higher taxes, higher business costs, and ultimately higher consumer prices. We all have to be willing to bite the bullet to prevent massive losses down the road. The problem with prevention is that you don't see it pay off in some pretty starburst of savings. You see it in statistical analyses. Some very smart people can estimate how much prevention saves us, but it's not a news story. It's not an event. It's every day going off like every other day instead of turning into disaster. It's small bumps in the road that don't turn into catastrophe. Nobody pays attention to that. Nobody looks at their tax bill and says, thank God these higher taxes paid for the drainage that's going to prevent me from having gone bankrupt after my house floods. Or looks at their light bill and thinks, I'm so glad this is high enough to ensure that I won't slowly suffocate to death 10 years from now when a total grid collapse cuts power to my breathing machine. But, you should. We are adults. We can think about the future and admit that experts know more than we do and that they come up with some really great plans that we should fund. And if we're worried about mismanagement and incompetence, we need more regulation, not less. We need inspections and stress tests and audits. We need open records and citizen oversight panels. Incompetence and mismanagement are just more symptoms of an underfunded system, not a reason to chuck the whole idea of good governance. My friend Rosie started a video series that was going to explain all of this, but then she got sidetracked and the power kept going out and, I don't know, childcare stuff. Maybe she'll get back around to it. I don't know. But whether she does or not, I hope you take some time to learn more about how markets operate beyond the fable of the perfectly competitive market and hold our electeds accountable for implementing regulations that help them work better. Because there's more hurricanes coming, and that derecho in May, in Houston, that's not normal, man. That's climate change. Talk about cost shifting. You said you weren't going to get into it. Fine. Stay safe, my human friends, and keep it in the ground.